In September 1598, one of the most powerful men in Japanese history lay dying in Fushimi Castle. He was 62 years old. He had risen from a peasant family with no surname to become the ruler of a unified Japan. He had built castles. He had commanded armies. He had dispatched 160,000 soldiers to conquer Korea, and eventually, China. None of that was what he was thinking about. He was thinking about his son. His son Hideyori was 5 years old. The men gathered around the deathbed. Japan's most powerful lords had promised to protect the boy. They had signed written oaths. They had sworn loyalty. He had made them swear multiple times. He still wasn't sure they meant it. His last documented letter survives. It was written to his most trusted advisors. It ends with him asking them, one more time, to take care of Hideyori. He died shortly after. Within 7 years, his son was destroyed by the very man who had signed the oaths most loudly. Hideyoshi was born in 1537 in a village in Owari province, the same province that would later produce Oda Nobunaga. His father was a peasant farmer who had briefly served in the military. He died when Hideyoshi was young. His family had no surname. In medieval Japan, surnames were the property of the samurai class. Peasants didn't have them. He was not tall. Contemporary accounts describe him as short, slight, and physically unimpressive. He had long fingers, which led to the nickname Saru, monkey, that followed him his entire life. He left home as a teenager and spent years working in various capacities. Laborer, traveling merchant, whatever he could find. At some point, probably in his early 20s, he attached himself to the household of Oda Nobunaga. He started as a sandal bearer. He carried his lord's shoes. What happened next happened because of Nobunaga. Nobunaga was Japan's most aggressive military lord. A man who was systematically defeating and absorbing rival domains through a combination of military innovation, ruthlessness, and political intelligence. He needed people who were effective, and he promoted them regardless of social class. Hideyoshi proved effective. He rose through Nobunaga's organization steadily, from sandal bearer to page, to low-ranking officer, to commander of increasingly significant forces. He had a gift for logistics, for building alliances, and for persuading people to cooperate rather than resist. He was not the most gifted battlefield commander in Nobunaga's retinue, but he was excellent at preparing the conditions for battle, securing supply lines, building alliances, and arriving at the right moment. He also had excellent timing. In June 1582, Nobunaga was assassinated at the Honnoji Temple in Kyoto by one of his own generals, Akechi Mitsuhide. Hideyoshi was far away, conducting a siege in western Japan. He received the news, concluded his siege remarkably quickly, force-marched his army back, and defeated Akechi at the Battle of Yamazaki 13 days after the assassination. He had avenged Nobunaga. That made him, in the political logic of the moment, Nobunaga's successor. The decade that followed was Hideyoshi's consolidation. He fought the lords who resisted. He negotiated with the lords who were ambivalent. He married strategic alliances into place. He used a combination of military power and theatrical magnificence. Enormous castle-building projects, grand tea ceremonies, gifts of extraordinary value. To communicate that he was now Japan's dominant power. By 1590, he had achieved what no one in Japan had managed in over a century. The country was unified under a single authority. He was given the title of Kampaku, Imperial Regent, though he could not become shogun because he was not of samurai lineage. The title was a workaround. It gave him formal authority without the class requirements. He was, in practical terms, the ruler of Japan. A peasant's son with no surname had become the ruler of Japan. He gave himself a surname. He called himself Toyotomi, Bountiful Minister. He was the first person in his family to have one. Having unified Japan, Hideyoshi turned his attention outward. His stated goal was to conquer China. Korea would serve as the land bridge. He sent a message to the Korean king demanding safe passage and military cooperation. Korea refused. In April 1592, he sent 160,000 troops. The early stages of the invasion, which EP 23 covers in detail, went well for Japan. Seoul fell. The Korean army collapsed, but the Korean navy, under Yi Sun-sin, destroyed the Japanese supply lines, and the invasion stalled. A second invasion in 1597 also failed to achieve its objectives. The campaigns cost enormous resources, Japanese, Korean, and Chinese. They solved nothing politically. They established nothing permanently. Historians debate what Hideyoshi ultimately intended: genuine conquest or leverage for a negotiated settlement, or something that evolved in ways he hadn't anticipated. What is clear is that by 1598, he was dying, the invasions had not succeeded, and his son was still a child. Hideyoshi's relationship with the question of succession was complicated and, in the end, tragic. He had no children for most of his adult life. His wife bore no heirs. In 1591, his nephew and designated heir, Toyotomi Hideyoshi, was given the title of Kampaku, making him the formal successor. Then, in 1593, one of Hideyoshi's concubines gave birth to a son, Hideyori. Hideyoshi's response was to turn on his own nephew. Hideyoshi was accused of crimes. The accusations were almost certainly fabricated or exaggerated, forced to commit suicide, and his entire family, including his wives and children, was executed. Hideyoshi was 57 years old and had a son who was less than a year old. He spent the remaining 5 years of his life trying to ensure that the lords of Japan would protect this child after his death. He extracted promise after promise. He assembled a council of 5 trusted lords to govern as regents until Hideyori came of age. He made them swear in front of shrines. He made them sign documents. The man he trusted most, and made swear most emphatically, was Tokugawa Ieyasu. Hideyoshi died in September 1598. Within 2 years, Tokugawa Ieyasu had positioned himself to seize power. In 1600, at the Battle of Sekigahara, he defeated the lords who remained loyal to the Toyotomi cause and became Japan's effective ruler. Hideyori was allowed to live as Lord of Osaka Castle. He was kept as a symbolic presence, while real power shifted entirely to the Tokugawa family. In 1614 and 1615, Ieyasu used a perceived insult on a temple bell inscription as pretext to attack Osaka Castle. In June 1615, the castle fell. Hideyori committed suicide. He was 22 years old. Everything Hideyoshi had built, every oath he had extracted, every promise that had been made at his deathbed, none of it survived his son's 22nd birthday. Hideyoshi himself is remembered as one of Japan's 3 great unifiers, alongside Nobunaga and Ieyasu. His story has the shape of a complete arc, born with nothing, rose to everything, died having failed at the one thing that mattered most to him at the end. He began life as a nameless peasant, carrying his lord's sandals. He ended it, begging men he couldn't trust to protect a child they didn't intend to spare. This is the Dragon Throne. We cover the rulers of Asia, the ones who built everything, and the ones who couldn't protect what they built. Subscribe if this story stayed with you. New episodes every week.